Hi everyone, Matt here from Proof Fly Fishing. In today's video I want to briefly introduce why you should consider learning how to repair or build your own fly rods. And then I'm going to quickly go over the tools that are required to work on rods. The list is pretty small, and chances are most of the items you have around the house or can be made with very little effort. But first, why would you want to consider building your own fly rod? A couple reasons. One is it's a great way to engage in the sport of fly fishing in the off season. Or if you're like me and you've got young kids at home and you just aren't able to get out as much as you'd like to, it's a great way just to stay in contact with the sport. Another reason, and I've really come to enjoy this, is to repair rods. You can do rod restoration. Maybe you find an old rod, a bamboo rod, or an old fiberglass rod at a garage sale, and it's missing a guide, or the ferrules don't fit, or the grip is near destroyed, or the reel seat isn't what you like. You can swap those pieces out really easily. Or, you can pick up a fiberglass rod, a beautiful rod, for a few dollars if it's missing a guide, or if a guide's bent or damaged. And you take it home, you strip the old guides off, and in a day, 20 minutes worth of work, you have a fully functional fly rod. So those are kind of the main reasons for me. I enjoy making things instead of just purchasing things. I feel like you have more investment in it. You tend to understand the product better if your hands have actually been on it in the process of making it. So with that said, on with the tools. The first thing, and this is probably the most specialized thing in the whole line of tools, is a rod wrapping jig. This is the SIG jig. This one is on my site, but you don't need to purchase one. They're super easy to make. Basically, you have two uprights with a V-notch, and then you protect those with felt, and then you have an outrigger that is roughly the same height with a similar notch. All this is doing is holding the blank so that when you wrap guides, you don't have to focus on managing the blank. This takes care of it for you. I've seen people, I've got a good customer in Canada actually, who uses cardboard uprights he made out of a moving box. And his rods are some of the highest quality rods I've ever seen. So when you're just getting into this, the temptation is going to be to focus on the equipment and which tensioning device you're going to use, and are you going to use a spring arm to control tension in addition to a thread tensioner. And I want to encourage you to kind of resist that temptation. My personal philosophy is less tools, less equipment, more skill, and more experience. And by sticking and starting off with a simple rod wrapping jig like this, what you're going to do is you're going to build the skills that you need instead of kind of having to spend so much time figuring out and fine-tuning equipment. So the second thing we're going to need, and how this kind of works together, you just need some sort of cup. And we're going to set that in front of us, and our spool of thread is going to get dropped into it. And then our thread tensioner, in this case a book. The book is going to go between the cup and the rod wrapping jig, or the blank. And so the spool is going in the cup, the thread runs through the book, maybe roughly the center of the book, to provide tension, comes over the top of the blank, and then you wrap that way. We'll get more into that when we actually start wrapping guides in a later video, but I just kind of wanted to explain the simplicity of the system here. You can adjust the thread tension depending on where you place the thread in the book, and there's a lot of different ways to kind of tweak this system while still keeping it very simple. Okay, so we have those elements. Let's get this stuff out of my way a second. Next thing you're going to need is a rat tail file. I think this is roughly an 8-inch, pretty rough cut. I think it's a bastard cut file. This is going to help you fit the grip to the rod. So grips come standard with maybe a 1/4 or a 3/8 opening, and you're going to want to open that up a little bit more. You can buy a specialized reamer that they sell for rod building, but a nice rat tail file is going to get you there just as well. Specifically for fiberglass, because oftentimes we're going to want to cut the back of the blank in order to fit a reel seat, because the fiberglass blanks on average have a large diameter in the back and the butt of the rod of the blank, and so we're going to want to cut that to fit the reel seat. We'll get more into that later too, but what you're going to need to do that is some sort of fine-tooth saw. This is more of a specialized saw. It's a woodworking saw, but if you have a hacksaw, that'll work fine. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Some sort of saw. If you have a Dremel with a cutting wheel, that'll work as well. Next thing is just some sort of tape measure. This is one that's used for sewing, but if you have a construction grade tape measure, that'll work fine too. That's going to be used just to lay out the placement of the guides. Next, razor blades. Yeah, some people use fly tying scissors. If you have like a real fine arrow scissors, you can use those, but I found that nothing works better than a very sharp double-edged razor blade. Second to last thing is a thread burnisher. This is a specialized burnisher, but you know, we're going to use it to polish the thread, to get all the fuzzies down before we apply the thread finish to the guides. You can use one like this, which is made specifically for burnishing, or if you have like a ballpoint pen, you can use the plastic side. You want to stay away from, obviously, from like where the writing is kind of etched into it, but a smooth, hard surface that's round will allow you to burnish a wrap. So again, you don't have to specialize if you don't want to. Last thing is just a brush. These are very inexpensive. They come in a wide range of styles, but we're going to use this to apply the varnish to seal the wraps up. And really that's it. You know, we could complicate it more if we wanted to, but again, when you're starting off, my advice is to focus more on building the skill, getting the experience, and minimizing the amount of tools and equipment that you have and use along the way. In the next video, we're going to fit a grip, so we'll be using the rat tail file as well as the saw. And I'm going to show you how to install a reel seat on a blank that has a large diameter that otherwise might not be able to accommodate the reel seat that you want. So yeah, look for that in the next video. We're going to fit the grip, we're going to install what's called a stint, and then I'm going to show you how to install the reel seat. We're actually not going to install it permanently. It's one of the last things I tend to do on a build, and we'll talk about that in the next video. Alright, we'll see you next time.